by the military-industrial complex.
It could be seen to move violently forward, violently forward, violently forward.
I'm just a patsy. Let's win there.
I said this once or twice, but it bears repeating. If you like your current insurance, you will keep your current insurance.
You think about the Army and the Navy and the missions they run to protect the world, they run on SAP.
Well, you have done a really spectacular job. I guess pretty much everybody at this table is your customer, so
Exactly.
that's not so bad.
Exactly.
I want to congratulate
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks you.
And we're back, but unfortunately, Meryl Nass took a powder. Oh wait,
she did.
Oh wait, there's somebody here. Wait, who's that? Oh, it's Meryl. It's Meryl Nass. She's here. Hi, George. I decided at the last minute that I would make it. So
Well, do you have an Abby Rockefeller puppet too? I guess I'll make my hand Abby Rockefeller. Hi, good seeing you again, Meryl.
If Abby Rockefeller looks like Pepe the Frog, then yes, I have Abby Rockefeller here too.
We want to have you on the boat again. My father, David, on the Hinckley yacht, we want to have you on the boat again. We want to send you on some more trips to look at some more anthrax bioweapons.
Is the board of directors of Project Veritas going to be there too?
Sure. All those guys work for us, James O'Keefe, everybody. So it's really good.
All right, very good. All right, well, I'm going to let Peter talk then.
Okay, I'll let George talk too.
Very good. Bye, George.
Bye.
Look, I'm a journalist. I have a microphone.
Well, I knew about the Abby Rockefeller thing and the strong friendship with Meryl Nass and Abby Rockefeller. And Abby Rockefeller, for those who don't know, is David.
Let's catch everybody up here, George.
David Rockefeller is the guy who's sailing around in the Hinckley yacht. The Hinckley yacht is the people who finance Project Veritas and James O'Keefe before James O'Keefe broke away. Strong CIA connections in the family with Nelson Rockefeller. More than David, but David kind of went off into health. David was really concerned about population control and the final solution virus and all that kind of stuff. And that's the one Henry Kissinger kind of sidled up to. The one that Alan Dulles is the one who was the good friend of Nelson Rockefeller. But so this book was written, Stan Pottinger, for both David Rockefeller and Henry Kissinger.
And Stan Pottinger was in the White House with Henry Kissinger at that time, right?
Yeah. And later, Matt Pottinger's in the house with Trump when there's another mass formation psychosis around a virus and vaccine.
Okay, I want to start. It's interesting because I was listening. Jimmy Dore sidekick. I'm trying to remember his name, but he made a big point the other day of misusing the mass formation psychosis. He pointed out really that what we're talking about is trauma-based mind control. And so I know that you want to keep using mass formation psychosis, but I'm going to put a bug in your ear that maybe it's just trauma-based mind control, because that's probably a more accurate term, but I'll leave it there.
Well, anytime you say mind control, you kind of put yourself in this conspiracy theorist camp. And they deliberately do that. They throw the mind control in there because that's something that only conspiracy theorists say. So I take that away from them. I use Bob Malone's term, but you get the idea. Using terror to cause
to change people's behavior.
Yes, using massive amounts of terror. 9/11 anthrax letters. Today we have the fentanyl letters. Yesterday, Veterans Day, we have the fentanyl letters. A complete remake, a redo. Complete recapitulation of the anthrax letters. So here we go again. What vital freedoms are going to be taken away from us this time? I predict it's going to be elections in general are going to leave state government completely. State government, local government, you might keep the dog catcher elections, but state government, governor, senator, all that, going to be done by DHS now. What happened the last time? What happened the last time? And the people are emailing me all these messages about Jason Goodman finally putting out pictures of deep Blackberry and finally putting out the unpixelated Blackberry. Wow. So that I'm getting some dinging coming in, but that finally happened. That was 6.5 years of.
Right. Well, Jason and that guy that he does that show with, they seem to be trying to make a kind of a whole serial out of the drama, the George Webb drama. And I just kind of want to put this out here that we named this show Door to Transparency because Meryl Nass, Jason Goodman, anybody who's out there who's got an issue, Mark Kulacz did a great 19-minute video that was basically just for you and me, George, that was kind of a backgrounder on Meryl Nass and the weird Bruce Ivins connections, and we can run some of that if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead. Everybody is sending me these video things of Deep Blackberry, and I'm saying I said Deep Blackberry existed. They're all sending me these pictures of the Senate markings on the Biden Blackberry, and I'm like, what did I tell you?
So just so that, to kind of cut to the quick as far as what I could. This is my interpretation of the Jason Goodman thesis, and it's interesting because what's the guy's name? John, who he does the show with?
John Cullen. Yeah,
John. What? What? No, John
Hoover's
Cullen.
his fake name. He's making fun of J. Edgar Hoover, but because he's an investigator. But John Cullen.
Anyway, Cullen is using his McKenzie reference as an appeal to authority, which I thought was funny. He's going, oh, this is a McKenzie method that we're using in order to do this. But Jason had a thesis, and the thesis was that somebody in the deep state was trying to set up a citizen journalist to look like a lunatic, aka in the vein of Ross Ulbricht, right? And that whole the problems that you had with the FBI and with the shipments in the port of Charleston and all that other stuff. I'm riffing here a little bit. Was all an attempt to isolate a citizen journalist and make them out to be a real baddie who is bad for truth in journalism, and that Jason had been identified as the guy that was going to get set up, and that hypothetically you were the person who was going to help facilitate that.
Can I just mention one thing?
Sure.
I said it was going to be Norfolk. I said it was going to be Ibrahim. Ibrahim's gang was arrested the following year. So if Ibrahim's gang was associated with bombings in Sri Lanka and bombings in Mumbai, so that's a really bad way to make a citizen journalist look bad. When they actually
but it's a really good way to get people to subscribe to your subscribe star. And
well, I just want to say that resulted in indictments of Ibrahim, and I just want to say that a little bit later, 1 month after that, Imran Awan and 3 other members of Congress were indicted, which I then went on to sue in the DNC. So that's an awfully odd way of making a citizen journalist look bad when the citizen journalist says these people should be indicted, and then the next month I returned 4 freaking indictments. All right, and then I go on to sue the DNC and Peter Strzok in the following 2 months. So that's a heck of a way to show that the citizen journalism isn't effective. The citizen journalism was incredibly effective. The thing that slowed down citizen journalism was pixelating all the damn stuff that was the proof points. Then we wouldn't have had to go through all these damn stupid ass Hunter Biden laptops. 28 laptops you lost now with classified information. How could that possibly be? It was the Blackberries that he wasn't meeting on a boat with Bob Yalinsky in Monte Carlo with his laptop.
Right. So he wants to spend over a series of videos trying to explain his hypothesis about that. And I'm going to say the same thing to Jason Goodman that we said to Meryl Nass. And I'm going to throw Mark Kulacz in there. Mark, I love you. I think you do great work, but doing cringecore on JJ Cooey instead of just having a conversation with George about the things that you disagree with him about. I disagree with George about things on this show every week, and maybe more than once a week. And we still seem to get along and have great conversations. So I'm just hanging it out there. Like, we'll run Mark Kulacz video. And
well, first of all, I want to say I can't say those two names in the same sentence. Mark is a fantastic researcher.
Indeed.
And has always tried to move the ball forward and has no ulterior motives whatsoever. I respect him tremendously. Jason is just about clicks. That's all he cares about, the money. That's it. So, but Circular Firing Squad doesn't make a lot of sense when we're going up against the freaking FBI and the Rockefellers. Come on, man.
Right, exactly. Because that's the game they play. If you've read Caesar's Gallic Wars, this is an old story. You don't have to fight all of the people who potentially can overthrow you in an information space if you've got them all fighting with each other. Like that, that's kind of a dumb thing. John Cullen's videos that he made on Las Vegas, I think, had some of the best information and are the most overproduced videos that I've ever watched, ever. They are so... he has this saying that he keeps repeating on his show, which is like, if I was trying to explain this to my grandmother, and I look at the videos that John Cullen made about the Las Vegas shootings, which again, like I said, I think they've got fantastic information in them. They're so overproduced, you couldn't forward them to anyone. Like, nobody would watch them who wasn't wearing a tinfoil hat. And it's a shame, because the information is really good information. I don't know if he's trying to be true stream media or whatever it is that he's trying to do. But, if I was sitting on the back couch at the Edit Bay at Playground Media Group, where I used to work, no, it's not Playground Media Group in the Valley. That was a porn company. There's a Playground Media Group in Santa Monica. We were a motion picture marketing company mostly. If I was sitting on the couch back there looking at John Cullen's videos, I would say, we need to lose half the graphics here. Like, you need to cut to the chase.
Peter, there was this guy named Peter Duke that told me less is more a long time ago. I think maybe that you weren't the first guy to say less is more, but less is more. Don't get in the way of your own content with graphics and so forth. It is helpful to say what city you're in. It is helpful to say what building you're in front of. It is helpful to say who you're talking about. It is helpful to have an explainer.
Your lighting has gotten better, George, lately. And
you listen to Peter Duke, you get better lighting. But what you don't want is just swoosh graphics all the time, just bugging the crap out of and getting in the way of the content.
Right.
And I know John is very good with that. I have to say good things about John. I watched his stuff that he did about the CDC. I watched the heat map almost every time he was on. I thought it was fascinating. He was the only guy who was really saying, look, hey, flu's down, coronavirus is up.
Yeah.
They've just switched the anthrax still is the base bacteria here. They've just switched the spike here on you. It's a little card, a three card Monty that they're playing with you, run syncytial virus and the different spikes. I thought that was brilliant. He made a very quantitative argument, and he was also a very graphical argument. He made his graphs, his maps, his heat maps. I love that stuff. He's good. I never took. Well, I don't want to go off on that. Why don't we play Mark's video, because I think that's
all right. Here we go. Yeah. I should have written down the timestamps on it, but
I would start somewhere where he gets into the description and just.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me see.
4 minutes, I think, somewhere.
All right. Here's 4 minutes. That's not a good shot of Mark there.
Nass was said to be the primary suspect, and pretty much the case was closed on the same time that he committed suicide in 2007. Now, a character witness had come out at a time which we just don't know exactly the time. It was probably not too long before Ivins was ultimately accused and died of a suicide. And her name was Nancy Hagwood, Higwood. If you go to the Houstonic archive, and it's under the H's, HAIG. And this is Nancy Hagwood. I don't know. This was in the year 2011. So this is about a 12-year-old photo. Get myself out of the way a little bit here. And Nancy Hagwood provided testimony to the FBI. We still don't have the raw testimony, but it's understood that she said that Bruce Ivins, 20 years or so before September 11, 2001, was in her postdoctoral studies, and a couple times approached her and made her uncomfortable. Not necessarily in a physical way, but weird things that he said, weird body language, I suppose. There's a story of a notebook that was taken and then put into the United States Post Office mailbox. Very, very odd stuff. And then also...
sounds like the Kavanaugh trials accusations, just, metadata. Just,
I guess Nancy Hagwood had her fence spray painted at one point with a college fraternity, sorority emblems on it, which I guess Bruce Ivins was upset about. It's odd. Okay. It's just odd. Anyways, this testimony was key in securing the belief that Bruce Ivins was an unstable man, even though he had been married, no sign of infidelity, even though he just won government awards for high levels of service, even though he was producing at the time.
Is this the part you want, George?
Yeah, and I just want to add, he's the organist every Sunday at the church. I mean, so he's really downhearted. He's singing about God every Sunday in front of the whole congregation. We have hundreds of witnesses that say he was leading the church and volunteering with all the kids that, so this is such crap. The FBI story is such crap. Continue.
Yep. The highest level one could ever hope for within the United States Army medical research, infectious disease research, that he at times must have demonstrated some instability, which made him possibly capable of independently and as a lone wolf doing all of Ameritrax. It's quite a pill to swallow. Anyways, it was based upon some odd behaviors which Nancy Hagwood had reported on. Now, we bring this up because, of course, officially, Bruce Ivins is still responsible. And as a fellow Christian, I think it's deeply insulting that someone of which as strong a faith as Ivins would have committed suicide, committing his soul to hell forever, because he felt bad about something. It just doesn't make any sense. So the last show that we did here, why do I have John O'Loughlin's name up? I'm sorry about that. That's what happens when you're doing all the mixing and whatever yourself. The last show here, by the way, that's right. I don't need to change that one. I need to go here. The last show that I did, which I released on my live one, did it unedited. I just re-edited it yesterday evening. Again, I don't get a lot of time to do as much as I'd like to with the research right now. And I put the cleaned up version with some additional graphics on BitChute, Odyssey, and Rumble on my Houstonic or Houstonic Live channels on BitChute.
Just because he's mentioning BitChute, Odyssey, and Rumble, we got our YouTube strike taken off, George. So we're on YouTube today. So
wow, that's awesome news.
Indeed.
Odyssey and Rumble. And in there, I did this 2 days ago. And this was also sort of prep, providing background material, which will be useful for today's Meryl Nass and George Webb interview on the Peter Duke show with Peter Duke. That we need to stop thinking about the anthrax vaccine as singular. If it was plural and there were multiple companies involved, and they almost all of them, aside from Emergent, were looking at gene therapy techniques, transfection, recombinant DNA, all kinds of methods. 6 ways.
So I think Mark may misunderstand what I'm saying about Bruce Ivins.
Okay.
And I'm saying all this is about gene therapy as well. So I completely agree with Mark's thesis that all the anthrax iterations of the vaccines were gene therapy. I totally agree.
So you're in violent agreement.
I'm not even in violent agreement. I'm in happy-go-lucky agreement.
Okay.
What I wanted to say, though, was Bruce Ivins wasn't working on the 6-shot vaccine. The whole thing about Bruce Ivins was he was punching through, for the first time, a massive test against potentially 700,000 soldiers. And then it got expanded to 2.5 million soldiers for recombinant technology. Recombinant was different than the old technology that Kaprowski had at Leaderly. Okay. It was different technology, and it was only one shot. So this is like M&M. One shot, you got opportunity of a lifetime. You know what I mean? Right? This is M&M right here. So it's not, I'm not saying that it's about emergent biosolutions. I'm saying it's about the Rockefellers wanting to be the first kids on the block, not new kids on the block. They want to be the first kid on the block. They want to be the M&M on the block for recombinant technology. And most of these things for new technologies are very hard to schedule. It's very hard to get a clinical trial. It's very hard to get congressional approval for compassionate care. But when you have to send your soldiers overseas and there's an emergency, you get to poke everybody, right? So you get to have the
emergency use declaration, right?
It's that thing that Alan Arkin talked about. Emergency, everybody to get from street. This is emergency, everybody to get vaccine.
Right.
You just have those Russian guys come out. Emergency, everybody to get vaccine.
Emergency. Yes.
So I just want to say that I'm not into VaxGen and Vical and Emergent Biosolutions. They were all in the running, and they were all trying to please the Rockefellers. I'm not saying that's not happening here. What I'm saying, though, is Bruce Ivins has this new technology, what they've done is they've purified the protective antigen down in the anthrax vaccine, and they're trying to add other things to it so that it's too weak. It's too weak. Even though it's purified, weakness comes along with the purification. So they're trying to make it stronger. So we'll continue with Mark.
All right, here we go.
Emergency. Everybody to get from street. Emergency. Everybody to get from street. Хорошо.
Good. Хорошо.
All right, here we go.
This is how vaccine does in America. Vaccine in America. Those are the Rockefeller Russians. Thank you for bringing the Rockefeller Russians from the Rockefeller retreat, the Russian retreat.
Okay, I just got to go back and find Mark now. Here we go.
It's still Sunday. It's 6 or 7. And some people, I think, say 10. But the highlight was all gene therapy. And the more we talk about, it was just one vaccine. This fraud Hebrew bought this company in Michigan, and he must be a bad guy because he once met Epstein, all this other crap. The big story was the excitement about.
Can I just stop for a second?
Sure.
Gene therapy.
The reason why Fraud El-Hibri is important is he's a front man for the Bin Laden group. He's an investor for the Bin Laden group and Saudi intelligence, and they're the same ones, the pilots that hit the 9/11, the towers. Okay, so it's odd
when you say they.
Well, supposedly the 9/11 hijackers hit the towers in these planes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Bin Laden group literally is the ones that have this front man named Fraud El-Hibri that buy emergent biosolutions. And the important thing here, and I don't think Mark quite has looked at the patents. The patents for this original recombinant technology and the patent to make it and the patent to diffuse anthrax so that it can become gene therapy and not a toxin is Bruce Ivins' patent. And those go to emergent biosolutions. I'm saying the gene therapy patents are going to emergent biosolutions. I'm not saying the money that they make on the anthrax vaccine is the motive for 9/11. I'm saying the $1 trillion opportunity that you would have a cancer transport or some type of defanged anthrax which could be used for gene therapy. So we're in total agreement. So I think he thinks I'm pushing this emergent biosolutions wheelbarrow because of the vaccine revenue. I'm not. It's Cofer Black of the CIA and Bin Laden that inherit those two key patents. Okay, so
Inherit when Bruce Ivins passes away.
correct. So it should be Bruce Ivins has everything to gain by dying, right? And that everyone else loses? No, actually, the only cui bono is what you ask in an investigation, right? Who hated this guy is the first question every cop asks. Right?
well, who hated him? Who benefited from his demise? Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
And then you say, well, there's this guy over here, Emergent. They get $1 trillion. Oh,
That's trillion. That's a lot of zeros.
That was the big story, and that is all getting lost right now. And that's separate from Bruce Ivins, really. I mean, he had the direction he was working on. I think might have been looking more like a VLP. But either way, all these other companies were fighting for the anthrax vaccine opportunity.
This is really important, Peter.
And
it's in the book.
See, their
hang on,
gene therapy techniques being turned into potential vaccines.
This is not speculation. This is in the book.
Okay.
The recombinant technology.
In which book?
The Vaccine A book.
Vaccine A, Gary
Matsumoto. And I thought I had
yeah.
it sitting here, but I don't. Anyway, Gary Matsumoto, vaccine. It's in the book. It's well explained that this is the first use of recombinant technology against the big population. And the thing is, this population, you could never get approval. Then they can't sue you, and they're going to be around forever. Not if they're not in the military medical database, they're going to have longitudinal records in the VA database. So it's the perfect population to test against. That book. So that explains it. So I think Mark's kind of maybe charging at a shadow here.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right, but he's got other interesting things to say, and other interesting things in this video.
Yes, he does.
Here we go.
Vaccine technologies in it throughout the 1990s, and I reviewed this here in that episode. It's a very, very important summary on the topic. This is where we'll all come together for you guys. Okay. With that said, I'm going to go solo on this one, even though I'm a wreck. This book, Big Shot AIDS Vaccine, came out, was published the week after, September 11th, 2001. It took 4 years to write, at least. It's a big book. Okay, that's interesting, Mark. Why are you talking about that? This is why it matters. This book that took 4 years to write and was published the week after September 11th, 2001. This book is about the same companies that were making the anthrax vaccine. VaxGen, the Vaccine Research Center, the antibodies that some of the monoclonals that some companies were looking at, which I know is not a vaccine, but they were kind of in the mix too, because, well, you can't make the monoclonals without the materials, a lot of the same materials that are required to make the vaccines.
Let me explain something.
This book came out the week after September 11th, 2001.
Okay. In recombinant technology, okay, they had figured out they needed to make protective antigen, they thought. And let's just say, for sake of argument, that's just 5-letter code. Okay.
Okay.
And then they have E. coli over here, a bacteria. Okay. Totally different bacteria. Or pertussis. The English had the pertussis. John O'Loughlin mentioned at Colorado State they did mycobacterium. They also tried tuberculosis, but totally different. Okay, and then what they do is basically they take just the gene for making protective antigen, and they put that into and recombine that to make a chimera. You see,
Mm-hmm.
but if you don't know the 5 codes, you can't exfiltrate. You can't exfiltrate the codes for the protective antigen, and you can't give that to other competitors. So Bruce Ivins knew that code in 1991. That's how they made the recombinant gene. If he didn't know exactly what the gene was, they couldn't have put it in the recombinant gene. Bruce Ivins knows the secret code, the magic formula. They exfiltrated those formulas out to Vical with Rob Malone. They exfiltrated those things out to VaxGen. They wanted as many people to get it as possible so that they could, Dyneport in England. They want as many people to have a shot at this, like they say, big shot, before Bruce Ivins was able to take advantage of the patent. You see what I mean?
Yeah. So they, yes.
Steal
so it's a way. Yeah. It's stealing. It's intellectual property theft.
Yeah. So the fact that there's 3 vaccines or 6 vaccines or 20 vaccines, however many people you give the protective antigen code to is going to be how many vaccines that are going to be competitive. And the reason why you would announce it on September the 11th is, oh my gosh, the original plan was Muhammad Atta, Duisburg scholar, was going to hit the trade centers with anthrax in the belly of the plane, as Joe Biden said the day before. Then the world would have been looking for an anthrax vaccine. All of Wall Street would have shut down and everybody would be screaming for an anthrax vaccine. That timing didn't work out because they weren't able to lure Bruce Ivins to Princeton before 9/11. That's the reason why it ended up being in 2 pieces. So I'm not saying there wasn't many vaccines. I'm not saying that they didn't give the initial business to VaxGen and then they gave more business to Dynecor. I'm not arguing that at all. But I am saying that the protective antigen code that Bruce Ivins developed in 91 was stolen and exfiltrated and given to those companies, including Bob Malone's Vical.
Right. And the thing that's interesting to me in listening to you tell this story is that ever since you mentioned in the megabytes to Pakistan, whatever the Dropbox backup to Pakistan,
Terabytes to Pakistan.
Terabytes to Pakistan, when you were talking about how the Library of Congress patent database was getting backed up to Pakistan.
Yes.
And it was only then that I became aware of the idea that intellectual property is a big deal, and having basically it's the magical recipes, right, for different kinds of treatments gives you a great deal of, this may sound like a sidebar, but it's not really. People in the United States might pay 1,000 times more for a drug than somebody in Canada. And there's no difference in the manufacturing cost. The difference is how much, what the relationship is, the patent relationship is with the people who own the patent and the government and the pharmaceutical companies in one country as opposed to in another country. That is, the amount of money that it costs to manufacture that drug is the same. And so the things that wind up becoming mitigating factors are who's got the deal in which country, and then who's got the recipe, right? I'm always trying to kind of boil things down to the simplest way to look at it. And so if I understand you correctly, Bruce Ivins he made a discovery that he patented. Nobody else had that information except him. And maybe the Library of Congress, because you have to give the Library of Congress that information when you apply for the patent, correct? No?
Under normal circumstances. But remember, when Bruce Ivins does it, it's a top secret program. Okay. It's under armed guard. It's a top secret program. They don't even tell Colin Powell about it. They don't tell Schwarzkopf. Schwarzkopf is against vaccines. This is Dick Cheney's private program called Project Badger. So nobody knows about this yet. So what you need to do, if you're really smart and you're a Rockefeller, is you need to send somebody in there to befriend Bruce Ivins and get that code. Once you have that code for that protective antigen spike, that's all you need to launch 1,000 vaccines. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay. And that's what happened. And you're going to see Meryl Nass when you see the documentation, you're going to say, oh my gosh, that sounds like what happened with Meryl Nass.
Okay.
Okay.
So should we go back to Mark, or should we keep talking about this story?
I think this is really important for Mark because he didn't understand that I wasn't saying the 6-shot vaccine. I was saying the recombinant, and he wasn't understanding that I was saying the recombinant code, and Meryl Nass is going in to get that code. I'm not, or somebody like Meryl Nass is going in to get that code, because without that code, I don't make Abby, I'm not going to make anybody happy in the Rockefeller family without that code. Now, maybe the code was accidentally released in a paper and accidentally typed into a paper, but we'll go there when we get there.
Are we going to go there in this video?
Yeah. Well, okay. Let's play a little bit more, Mark. I think it's really important for people to understand exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the name of the show, The Door to Transparency, right?
Yeah.
This book came out the week after September 11th, 2001, about the same companies and going to gene therapy. Same companies and same technologies which are being offered for anthrax. This book, which came out the week after September 11th, 2001, took 4 years to write. It's about the same companies that were making the vaccines for anthrax. The primary character is Nancy Haywood. The same person that provided the testimony about Bruce Ivins being a little bit odd, the same person that provided testimony that is used as the basis for saying Bruce Ivins is the person most likely responsible for the anthrax letters, is one of, this book has like 200 characters. Let's just say it's one of the top 5 characters in this book. And it's about gene therapy. It's about the companies that are making AIDS vaccines, which were going to effectively also now be anthrax vaccines. By, of course, changes in formulation and so on and so forth.
We can stop there. So we've determined that we're in violent agreement or happy-go-lucky agreement with Mark. And I think Mark understands what I'm saying about Bruce Ivins now. Now this sets up the 3 key meetings with Meryl Nass, with Bruce Ivins. One is almost right after the shots go in people's arms in Khobar Towers in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, with the 129th Medical Division into the arms of the 82nd.
And is this before Khobar Towers gets blown up?
Yes, about 5 years before. Khobar Towers later gets blown up 5 years later, where the 129th, based here in Centralville, Alabama, where the 129th put the super secret 1-shot recombinant vaccine of Bruce Ivins into the arms of the 101st and the 182nd and a couple of other special forces folks. The explosion and bombing happened right there where the 129th was. So there's no DNA evidence there anymore. But anyway, yeah, just an interesting coincidence. I mean, if you're going to do a bombing, you may as well do it where all the DNA is that proves that you stole the vaccine. Anyway, in University of Maryland, remember all the guys in our story are from the University of Maryland. Cadillac, Bob Gallo, Daryl Galloway, David Hone, everybody, Stephen Hatfield, everybody's from the University of Maryland. University of Maryland, I think it's April 1991, or maybe it's a little bit after. But Meryl Nass, this is what she told me, her testimony, not mine, that she went to this and sat next to Bruce Ivins at this event for 3 days. And she used this paper right here, A Labyrinth of Biodefense, to directly accuse the head of Fort Detrick, a guy named Huxsoll, Huxsoll, of doing bioweapons and breaking the BWC convention. Right? Now, there's another guy who goes into as a lowly postdoc at the same time named Sina Bavari, who's an Iranian national at one of the most important times in American history. We're going to go fight against a Muslim group in Kuwait and then in Iraq. We're going to make an Iranian national now and put him on the anthrax team in 1991. He has what I call a Rockefeller rise, and 10 years later, he's a deputy, and then a few years later, he's running Fort Detrick, and Bruce Ivins is out. So the hero of 1991 and the recombinant vaccine gets pushed out, and Sina Bavari gets pushed in right as this is happening. But she writes this document, which if you think about it, it'd be like me going up right now to the.
Is Sina Bavari also the VLP person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus also.
Sina so Sina Bavari is the developer of virus-like particles also, right?
Also silencing particles. He has 3 patents with Bob Malone and Michael J. Bennett on silencing RNA or siRNA, 3 patents, right? And so Sina Bavari has a history of exfiltrating this stuff out, right? Michael J. Bennett seems to be the name they made up as the person who received it, and then Bob Malone seems to receive things from Michael J. Bennett. He never seems to get anything directly from Sina Bavari out of Fort Detrick. But all these patents and all this intellectual property spews out of Fort Detrick when Sina Bavari is there, and all these Michael J. Bennett, this potentially real person, potentially fictitious person, but he supposedly came to our Salk vaccine charrette 3 times. We saw him in the flesh 3 times, at least somebody who said he was Michael J. Bennett. But
was this is the one that I went to, or
no? You went to the one we did up in Tiger
San Diego.
Wood.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
North San Diego.
I know what you're talking about. That big park there.
Piney. Not Piney.
Somebody will say it in the chat. Kathy Sue will remind us.
Yeah. So, but that was also where Salk is, and that's also where SAIC was, and that's why Kathy had us go there. It's where Tiger Woods wins every year.
Torrey Pines.
Torrey Pines. Yeah. So we did one there, and then we also did one down by the Navy base, which was closer to the naval kind of area where they were fitting these things out on Navy ships to shoot them as weapons. Okay. But Salk was where they were kind of doing the research and development for these weapons. Okay. And Stephen Hatfield on SAIC was doing this. So the bottom line here is that she writes this article, which is a fairly in-depth article about anthrax. Now, she's supposed to be a general practitioner at a small country hospital. But she writes a very detailed paper about the history of bioweapons, and she accuses the guy who's running Fort Detrick of breaking the BWC.
This is all the metadata to me about her resume that is curious, because it kind of matches this, cutout made man scenario where you have somebody who lives in a trailer and they build a 3D headset on a 3D printer, and then Mark Zuckerberg gives them $2 billion. And then they give $10,000 to some Trump supporters, and they wind up getting an $800 million payout and start a Defense Department company.
ET phoned home to a couple of galaxies away with a speak and spell and a parabolic reflector, something out of the garage, remember?
Yeah.
So that was the priming we were
Lots
getting.
of aluminum foil.
Yeah, lots of aluminum foil.
Yeah.
So, but here she has the actual diagram of Huck's soul and everything. Now, why would you send somebody in to accost the guy who's running Fort Detrick? Because you're going to say, if anything goes wrong, we told you so. Anything goes wrong with this new vaccine, we told you so. And now we've got a hero, and now we can move on to the next vaccine.
Right.
So
and it reminds me of Fletcher Prouty, who said that there was an office across the hall from his at the Pentagon that was writing the cover stories for every operation that they did in case something went south. There was an entire division that was just writing cover stories and creating counterintelligence information in order to be able to cover up for any operations that may miscarry.
I spent 2 weeks, and people are going to say that last post on that corner wasn't perfect. I'm blaming it on Andy Dubala. But 2 weeks building a deck for an emergency room doctor, I saw how trauma doc works. She's on the phone all the time. Emergency room, they don't have time to do this kind of thing. They don't have time to challenge the head of Fort Detrick. The reason why they challenged the head of Fort Detrick is because they wanted to be on record. We challenged you. So if anything goes wrong with this vaccine, we're on record. We challenged you. So not Bruce Ivins. She sits with Bruce Ivins for 3 days and buddies up to Bruce Ivins. And then Bruce Ivins helps her write this document in the next year. She tells Bruce Ivins, hey, I just happened to go to Zimbabwe and I just happened to make a survey of all the bioweapons patterns and metadata from the war.
Because that's what a country doctor does.
She just was interested. She was just, the internet wasn't around yet, but she was just on the internet. Okay.
Yeah, she just got a ticket and she just went.
Right.
Yeah.
Because this is 1978 to 80. So she's looking at not the ground. She's not looking at the ground for anthrax. And
isn't there a civil war going on there at the time too?
78 to 80, there was a civil war. She goes there 10 years later.
Okay.
Okay. And she writes this 20 pager, which is the most detailed paper, you know, for that time, understanding of anthrax, as well as the bioweapons understanding. I mean,
and what's the name of that paper?
The name of this paper is episodic anthrax episodic, which I think means a breakout in an animal population in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
Okay. And I read this paper and I grabbed this paper, and I mean, I'm telling you, go through it. 6 of the 8 provinces in Zimbabwe were infected. That's not the point. Normally anthrax vaccine breakouts are point things. There was 10,000 cases and 182 deaths. Before that, there had only been 7,000 cases in the previous 50 years. Normally it's drought and then heavy rain. As the conditions, it could be the meat. She goes through the fertilizer. She goes through the vaccination. She goes through the fact it happened mostly on tribal lands. So it seemed like a land grab or an ethnic cleansing off the tribal lands. She goes into after the rebel groups won the overwhelming election, all the anthrax stopped. She goes through all the various insects that could have vectored it. She goes through the role of bottle flies. You remember Jaco Benassi with the black soldier flies. Most flies won't transfer something from carrion to another live animal, but bottle flies can do that. Blowflies. And also black soldier flies that Jaco Benassi was a part of.
Curious.
Not many people know that about different species of flies and mosquitoes and ticks and so forth.
Little country doctor.
Yes, she knows all about calves and how calves are less likely because they're getting milk. They're less likely to get something through the mouth from the ground. Okay, so she breaks that up. The swelling, she breaks out the parenteral, meaning non through the mouth, parenteral meaning coming through the body in some way. She breaks that out from the oral. She breaks out the various strains. She talks about the various strains. She talks about the blowflies, as I said. She doesn't mention Jaco Benassi and the black soldier flies, but I just thought I'd throw Jaco Benassi in there. She talks about feces as a way of getting it. She talks about the what they call the LD50, how many percentage have to die, and how many spores you need to kill various animals, the goats versus the cattle.
Right.
Twice as much for the cattle. Remember Imran Awan with the 5-year study for anthrax with the goats, and the 5-year study with pigs, and 5-year study with.
I don't remember that.
Well, Imran Awan, DESTO, Pakistan sure as heck did run that, and then China did take the intellectual property and ran that same thing.
He's an interesting IT guy.
Terabytes to Pakistan, right? So I'm just saying, she goes through sand flies. She goes through mice being 50 spores. You have to have 100 million spores, like a million times more spores to kill a cow. She knows the horse flies is 100 times transmission, what they can carry versus the normal infection. Just going through this.
And how do you determine that?
Well, she cites a lot of papers.
Okay.
She cites a lot of papers, but you get the point here is, she said she sent a lot of messages and made a lot of phone calls into Fort Detrick. I'm assuming, unless Meryl wants to come in and clarify, which we've asked her 10 times.
So George, have you ever called Fort Detrick up and just asked him questions?
You can. It's a top secret facility. You get shot if you try to go in there. I wrote a book about somebody, Desenbed, who did get shot, even though he had a clearance.
2 doctors, right?
But no, this was a different guy. This was an Ethiopian guy who said that they were using stuff that was for a grain and rice project for biofermentation and creating bioweapons in Ethiopia. And that was our guy who's running the WHO right now, Tedros. But this was the entree to Bruce Ivins for the 3-day conference. And she's making the phone calls and she's typing the emails. And this is the output, especially
Tedros has bioweapons development in his resume?
No, but that occurred in the Tigray part of 3 different cholera breakouts is how they covered it. But they've had 3 different uses of bioweapons in his area, Tigray area, his only 8% of the population. But Peter, this isn't speculation. She credits Bruce Ivins.
Okay.
In her credits for this paper. She says she called and he provided the supporting material. Right? So at what point would they end up talking about?
So was that paper, and that paper was published
1992.
Okay,
now,
so before he passes away.
Way before. And she admits that she's emailing him all along the way until 2008. Now, what I'm saying is at some point that they mentioned protective antigen all over the place. At what point is Bruce Ivins going to start talking about recombination? Recombination was already out. That was with Genentech. That was for insulin. At what point is she going to start talking about, well, where is the gene located? Where's the gene located in the anthrax bacteria? Right? As soon as you know that, you create what Mark said, multiple vaccines. Mark's going to see this and he's going to go, oh my gosh, that's what he meant. Yes, that's what I meant. And I think Nancy Hagewood is a distraction. Nancy Hagewood is what you're talking about with Fletcher Prouty. It's a parallel construction to explain how the code of the protective antigen got in the hands of this crew, of this Rockefeller crew. How else would it have gotten in the hands? The only people who knew the genetic code of protective antigen at that time and the recombination technique to get it into the other bacteria, that's the key, the secret recipe. The only place it's known.
The MacGuffin, as Alfred Hitchcock would call it.
The only place it's known is in Bruce Ivins' notebook. So the whole Nancy Hagewood story, going back 28 years to the whole thing and trying to explain how they came about that information is exactly as you say, it's a cover story for the real way it happened. For the real way it happened.
Yeah, and the metadata to me is that it got published in a book with a big yellow cover.
You heard Counting Crows and you heard Joni Mitchell. Big yellow taxi, come to take my boy away, right? They sang about it. They sang about this. If we're going to take Bruce Ivins' patent away on September 11th, we're going to order a big yellow taxi. We're not going to try to hide.
Right. Hunter Gatherer says, did Nass give a reason for pulling out? I think we asked her for a timeline, didn't we?
We asked her for the emails. She gave the emails to Scott Shane. She gave her emails to Bruce Ivins over the 18-year period. She gave the emails to Scott Shane. Now, I'm not saying she deliberately gave the code of the protective antigen to the other vaccine companies. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's accidental. But she gave the emails to Scott Shane to prove her bona fides that she was in communication with Bruce Ivins. If you gave the emails to Scott Shane at New York Times in 2008, why not share them with us right now? It's 15 years later. We just got hit with another white powder attack yesterday trying to whack off another piece of our democracy. Isn't it about time to stop the white powder mass formation psychosis or the mass terror campaigns?
Or it's trauma-based mind control.
They love when you take their suggestions. Trauma-based mind control, yeah.
Trauma-based mind control.
They love that mind control. They love that mind control.
But that really kind of is what it is.
I know it is, but it's so
and to your point, and I hear you loud and clear, because I was listening to Matthew Ehret today. So one of the things, and I've talked about this before, and it's a spoiler for my book, but Lyndon LaRouche in the 1980s wrote this paper called The Secret of the Elite, that the elites have used for the last 3,000 years to control us. And it's 14,000 words, and it goes into Plato and it goes into Aristotle. And, you can spurg out explaining this, but I tried to boil it down to, you've got people in control positions who use stories, and then you've got other people who are trying to use critical thinking. They're trying to use logic and evidence-based thought processes in order to kind of govern and steer people. The storytellers win. And the more you get rid of critical theory, the more that you get rid of critical thinking, then the more the tendency is for people to, instead of going out and reading the white paper like you just held up, which is the reason why I shared it. Here, I'll share again so that if people want to go look and find this paper, Anthrax Episodic in Zimbabwe, 1978 to 1980. A few people will download this and look at this. A few people will be able to understand it on the level that you understand it, and they will be using their critical thinking skills in order to determine whether or not George has a point or not. The rest of us, I'm not going to go do that. So I have to be either dependent on my faith in you, okay, or your ability to tell a better story than somebody else. Because at that point, I'm not really using critical thinking skills, right? I'm using my faith in George Webb, and that's kind of where we're at right now as far as all of this stuff is concerned. And listening to Matthew, Eric kind of listening to Matthew, Eric kind of like stumble around for 5 minutes. I've spent 3 days looking at the same 140,000 word article and came up with, okay, it's storytellers versus critical thinkers. That's it. I've reduced 140,000 words to one sentence for you, for everybody out there, because that's really where we're at.
I hate to say the whole thing boils down, this whole case boils down to the genetic code and how, if he didn't understand the genetic code, at least how he used restriction enzymes to splice out the critical part that created the protective antigen code and splice it into E. coli, or splice it into mycobacterium, or splice it into tuberculosis, or splice it into pertussis. There was a lot of different things they were trying to splice it into, but that is the juice. That's what they were trying to get. And that's
so Bruce Ivins had a secret decoder ring. And if you had the secret decoder ring or a copy of the secret decoder ring, you could go and you could manufacture a bunch of stuff with it. You could make
Coke secret formula, Coke secret formula with the guys going, and killing Bruce Ivins. The Coke made a commercial out of this. And that is the name of the game. And I hate to say they had to do a gang stalking. I'm not saying that Meryl Nass was a part of the gang stalking, but Nancy Haywood certainly was. And Bob Malone's silence on this is deafening, right? All the other people that are involved, Cadillac, Michael Callahan, all the other people.
Mark does get to the Bob Malone of it, I think, at the end of this video. Let me see if I can find it again.
Remember, we've been talking about dying port since 2016 and the anthrax vaccine and Zoltan Arsani. Just saying.
Okay, here we go.
If one of the most important topics of the anthrax attack and the response that's being misunderstood is the vaccine technologies, in particular the gene therapy, then this is one of the most important pieces of evidence to consider: a book about gene therapy vaccine. And it came out the week after, September 11th, 2001, 4 years to write. And one of the primary characters is Nancy Haywood, the person out of the 300 million people in the United States.
So again, the metadata for me is what he just said, that it came out a week after 9/11. It took 4 years to write. It's like, how do two H.G. Wells books, The Invisible Man and War of the Worlds, how are those in release in motion pictures, in theaters and on television? the same week that the world gets locked down with coronavirus. Like the idea that this is an accident is absurd.
Yeah, and let me add this. The fact that they push her out there with a book, A Big Yellow Taxi and so forth, is them wanting you to take the bait of Nancy Higwood, that somehow this graduate student 28 years ago figured out how to put the protective antigen in anthrax.
If you hold the book upside down, it's a hook.
Yes. It is. Oh, like that. Yeah. Don't you always need to go? You don't know what you got till it's gone.
Assassination of Bruce Ivins.
Right? You don't know what you got till it's gone. You don't know that it's the Coke secret formula for all of gene therapy. Remember, you disable anthrax. You take the bite out of anthrax. You take the lethal factor or you take the edema factor out. You've defanged anthrax, and now you've got the best delivery. It's still way superior to mRNA. It's $1 trillion, right? You don't know what you've got till it's gone. It's right there in the song. It's right there in the song. You don't know what you've got till it's gone. And that's why Bruce Ivins died.
All right. Kate Dirksen says, do you think Ken Albeck did any work with Ivins?
He worked with Callahan. They had to create a mass formation psychosis or a terror campaign.
A trauma-based mind control.
All of those things. Clockwork Orange, I called it in 2016 when I was talking to Chernovich, or 2017.
That's autism.
Yeah, a fear-based campaign, right? You have to keep they were trying to get the Biodefense Act passed in 2005. How are we going to do it? Right? The whole 9/11 thing really didn't play up very much they hadn't gotten the killer yet.
They got their war in the Mideast, but they didn't get their bioweapons legislation.
They came out with Stephen Hatfield as a stand-in. The guy Lambert, who did the investigation from San Diego, said I was put in as a placeholder just to keep the Congress at bay. So at 2005, they're not looking at doing anything with more anthrax. And here comes now Albeck saying, oh, they got a huge BioPrep Act program, and Michael Callahan testifying. And then they passed the PrEP Act, and they passed the BioPrep, the Biodefense Act. So, and that happened in 1989 as well, when Bruce Ivins went to Winchester to make the presentation for this recombinant DNA, and a guy named Pasechnik. No, a little different name. A guy named Pasechnik went to Porton Down and said, we have a huge, massive weapons program with anthrax. And the response was Bruce Ivins flying to Winchester and making the presentation about this vaccine and this recombinant technology. This was going to be the answer.
Meredith for Brain says, what is your sense about how many communicable diseases may have been inserted on anthrax backbones like coronathrax?
I can do as many as I want. And I don't necessarily need to use anthrax as the backbone. I can use pertussis. I can use, I have a lot of bacteria to choose from. But one thing is for sure. Bacteria is like a car and viruses are like people, right? Or bacteria is like a Humvee. You wouldn't want to go into battle without it, right? The viruses are very fragile by themselves, but if they're put inside a bacteria, it's like putting a soldier inside a Humvee and putting armor on them. And so it's hard to tell unless you can get what they call a piece of the envelope protein. If you can get a piece of the envelope, right, which is the part of the thing that is the shell, then you can identify what the backbone is.
But her question was how many, and my thought is that if you've got a technology like that, you throw the kitchen sink at it because you don't know what you're going to come back with. You notice who has all the insider top secret ways of testing? Matt Pottinger has the coronavirus test in January of 2020, not CDC. Because his sister-in-law.
Yeah, Pottinger had the one for AIDS, for the breakout in AIDS, when no one else had the test. Isn't that interesting? The Rockefeller.
It was Stan's daughter-in-law, wasn't it? Or was it his son?
No, it's Matt's wife. But there again,
Okay.
this whole crew you could put on one David Rockefeller yacht. The Hinckley yacht that he had, all these people would fit very comfortably on a Sunday sail.
And my guess is they have
Yes.
sailing outside of Newport someplace, right?
And if Meryl, this is why I say Meryl, think about your legacy. Think about God. Think about Jesus. Think, go home and pray to, next Sunday. Pray tonight, and just think about your legacy. What I'm saying is right. Right? You wash this off you right now if you get right with God. Okay? I'm just saying this is an incredible opportunity. There's an incredible opportunity for her right now.
It is. And it's interesting too, because she's so well received in other parts of the truth community. And there's so many other people who she's involved with that, this dark cloud doesn't help anyone.
The fact that she can't type IVINS return and see all the emails from Bruce Ivins and say, here you go, speaks volumes. Speaks volumes. That's all the emails, and the emails usually phone calls come in,
or come on and tell us why she doesn't want to share them all. Share the ones that she already shared with the New York Times.
The other two meetings are also very interesting in timing because they happen in 1998 in Plymouth, England. That's the Five Eyes saying, "Hey, Saddam Hussein's starting to rattle some stuff here with anthrax. We're getting an early signal that something's going to happen."
But Saddam Hussein had anthrax that was given to him by the United States, didn't he?
He bought it through ATCC from 1986 to 1989. But she has another meeting in 98, which is a precursor for the second invasion of Iraq. And they have it in Plymouth, England. And that's also an interesting one because it's anthrax again. Again, if you're a small-time general practitioner doctor, you're probably not sitting in on the anthrax.
In Bar Harbor, Maine.
In Bar Harbor, Maine, just to lay it all out, it started by a eugenicist, a Rockefeller eugenicist named Clarence Cook Little. Clarence doesn't cook a lot. Matter of fact, Clarence cooks little. And he was a eugenicist, a Rockefeller eugenicist.
And was he involved with that? It's an odd name for a hospital too. Mount Desert Island.
No, the Jackson Laboratory is owned. The majority shareholder, Jackson Laboratory, the front company was Hudson Auto Manufacturing in Michigan. Mitt Romney later became the AMC. Hudson goes into AMC. Queen Wilhelmina. This comes from Dave Underdown. Queen Wilhelmina is the majority shareholder. Dutch Queen Wilhelmina is a majority shareholder in the Jackson Lab. Tell me the Dutch didn't want to regain and hold on to their apartheid hold in South Africa. This all goes back to South Africa, holding the African possessions. And the reason why Prince Philip was interested from the British side is he wanted to hold the British possessions. But it was even a more tenuous hold with Royal Dutch Shell, because Royal Dutch Shell did not have the Navy. The Damen yachts are one thing, but they did not have the Navy the British had. So they had to have a force multiplier. That's why Queen Wilhelmina, through Henry Kissinger, through Queen Wilhelmina, put the money into the lab. And what they study there is cancer at this mouse lab. But they provided all the mice to Bruce Ivins. So because they're in such a control point for providing all the mice, especially the genetically modified mice, they know where all the projects are. Paul Cottrell's studying the TAP protein, right? So what do? You pick up the phone, you say, can you give me all kinds of mice without the TAP protein? Now I know before I put the phone down that Paul
Cottrell is working on TAP protein.
Yeah. That's how they knew Bruce Ivins was working on the recombinant virus, a vaccine.
And that reminds me of William Stevenson saying that MI6 had people in all of the insurance companies in the world because they could the fear that insurance is driven by risk, and if you understood what the board of directors of all of the major corporations in the world were felt their biggest risks were, because those were the things that they were investing their insurance money in, then you would be able to know where their attack vectors were. We've been going for an hour and 11 minutes. We haven't touched too much on Jason Goodman. I don't know if we want to save that for another show or, but
all I'll say is the picture of Deep Blackberry is out now after 6.5 years. The Blackberry is out with the Senate markings, exactly as I said 6.5 years ago.
So do you want to explain that to people so that you know?
Well, there's this guy who's a 40-year Biden. Is this
the right picture, George?
Yep. Yep. And there's the Senate markings. A 40-year Biden guy who says all this stuff. You know, the DNC's involved in Clinton Foundation's involved in all these dark weapons, right? All over the place, you know, and he's saying, you know, China is a partner and, you know, Imran Awan configures all these things. These things are for covert programs.
So didn't you say though that the number that's on the back of this BlackBerry is the altitude of the von Karman line?
And there's a very good reason for that. 327360 is the number, and that means that it's at that time was the Air Force Space Command, meaning if it's above 327360, nobody else in the Air Force can see it. Okay?
Right, but you're talking about a steganograph. And by the way, I learned this word from Jason Goodman. That's a steganographic reference, though, right?
Yeah, I just said it's a possibility that it could mean it's code for this is an Air Force Space Command. But
your critique at this point now is that he's got the guy's face pixelated, and
well, yeah, I mean, why pixelate the guy's face? You know, you'll see. Remember, I don't see Bill Taylor, until about 2 years later at the Trump impeachment. So we now know.
So you need the reference because you weren't sure whether or not that was Bill Taylor that you met with or not.
2 years ago.
Yeah. So that's why you want to see the guy's face.
Yeah. 2 years ago on 5 Wines. Okay. So
Jason doesn't actually have to publish it. He could just send you a screenshot and then you'd know, right? Is that the issue?
No, I think everybody should know who it is, right? Because then they'll be able to say, that's so-and-so in the Biden campaign. I know that guy, right? I want everybody to see this picture because he does work for the Biden campaign.
Right. Well, right. But again, if he was leaking information to you, then that would be a death sentence for him. And unless what you're saying is,
Peter, look at how many people have died. Look at how many people have died so far, right? Task Force, Brian Lloyd. I mean, the 2 doctors. There's been a whole bunch of dead bodies in this story so far.
Right.
So,
well, you can imagine that if somebody doesn't want to be a dead body, why they wouldn't want you showing their picture.
I know, but this is too important. This is a Biden whistleblower, and we've got. If I hadn't seen 18 or 50 fake Hunter Biden Blackberries putting out these fake packages. The only thing that are real in any of those drops is where it says sent from my BlackBerry. That Bob Yelensky, all of them, Joe Biden, James Biden, Hunter Biden. The only time you can be sure it's real is if it says sent from my BlackBerry. And this is the whole ball of wax. This is a whole other democracy, right? Of where and when Hunter Biden is at any given time, or Joe Biden or James Biden. Is he meet with?
I would say it's the whole of our government. I think the jury's out on whether or not we actually have a democracy.
Right. Okay. The government. But I'm just saying is right now we're going to an impeachment. Hillary Clinton starts saying impeach Joe Biden. Wouldn't this be the kind of evidence that you would want, right? At the impeachment is like, hey, you were on a yacht and your geolocation says you were on a yacht with Biden.
It sure would be ironic if your BlackBerry story is the one that takes Joe Biden out at this point.
What would you use otherwise? If you're the prosecutor,
my guess is that there's a book bigger than the New York City phone book for people old enough to know what the New York you could use to, sink a body in Lake Michigan.
But you have to place him with Yi, the Chinese spy, right? And the other guy they killed, I can't remember, the other guy disappeared. If you have their geolocation information and the timestamp and their geolocation, and you put those together, you can say that they probably were meeting at this same location. That's not going to look good where there's 12 different meetings with Joe Biden and Yi in all these different restaurants all around Washington, D.C., Kazakhstan, Romania, all these different places. That's not going to look good. It's going to look like he was providing bioagents to clear pipelines. We said this is what Blackberry said 7 years ago. It's turning out to be true in Gaza today, right now. It's been true ever since. It's turning out with the Ben Gurion pipeline, and it was true for the Chinese building the Belt and Road over to the Black Sea. They clear pipelines. These Blackberries clear pipelines. It doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like a shovel, but they actually get covert armies, and those covert armies spray these corridors, and they clear pipelines.
Interesting. Well, I'm gonna wrap it up here, George.
Yeah.
If we want to talk about Jason another time, we can do that. But Jason will do another show, and then we'll have something to talk about. But Jason, come on down. You called me up. I was a fan when I picked up the phone and started talking to you, and then you disabused me. And it's funny because Jason continues to use my all rights reserved copywritten photographs of George Webb on his thumbnails.
Yeah, today.
And I do have ways of dealing with that. Jason, I just think that you're a hypocrite because you talk about how you don't do that stuff and then you go ahead and do it yourself. With that, I'm going to see if there's any other questions. Somebody asked if we had a rain date. No, she canceled on us. I don't think she'll probably ever even respond, my guess. And one other thing is, one person said, are you saying that Nass received the code? No, I don't think that's what you're saying.
I'm saying somehow in the interchange between the two of them, somebody accidentally gave away that procedure of cutting out that restriction enzyme to cut out that gene and move that gene over to a bacteria. That was his patent, and that's what he knew how to do with the phages. That's the juice. And that's how these other vaccine companies created their recombinant vaccines that Mark's talking about. I don't care if there's 1,000 vaccines. The technology for actually doing it is the juice, right? It's the secret.
It's the MacGuffin.
It's the MacGuffin. It's sort of like the super secret process for making vulcanized rubber for Goodyear. Okay.
Indeed. All right. Well, with that, I will see you again on Tuesday, George. And thanks everybody for joining us. And we're sorry that Meryl Nass didn't come and show up, but if she wants to come next time, we're happy to have her. Jason Goodman, you're welcome. Mark Kulacz, you're welcome. Everybody's welcome. Come and disagree with us in person, and that would be showbiz, as it were.
That's showbiz.
Indeed. What? Hold on. Hold on for what? Hold on for this comment. 767 Aviatrix supporter says, Jason asked me a question. Quote, when did George Webb Peter invite me on his show? In Cullen's show comments, then banned me from answering. Unbelievably dishonest.
John, you're invited on the show too. There's your formal.
You're all invited. Sometimes I ban people who are just belligerent on, I wouldn't ban anyone who said Jay Goodman or anything like that. So I've banned people before, but usually I ban people who don't have any constructive criticism. I have no problem with criticism. Zero. I have a problem with non-constructive criticism. Anytime that somebody says Peter Duke talks too much, look at the name of the show right there. Okay. Look at the name of the show.
I think I talked about 80% today.
If you want to get banned off this channel, say Peter Duke talks too much. Peter Duke interrupts George Webb too much. You're banned. Goodbye. I don't care. See you later. Okay.
Well, we'll talk extra. If I stop up too much of the time, Peter will talk more at the end and vice versa. So
yeah, I mean, every once in a while, like every 3 shows, I might get on a soapbox for 5 minutes. I get on a roll. I get into a trance. you know.
Yeah.
But other than
But
that,
you're Peter Duke. You're Peter
I
Duke.
mean,
Man.
look, my job here, and where did the thing? My job here is to drive the back of the fire truck. Okay. Okay. George is at the front of the fire truck, and I'm back here. I'm on the. If we were honest, this is what the show would look like all the time. I would just be back here like Kramer, you know, going back and forth on the fire truck, and then you know, that's the way this show works.
I feel bad now.
No, you shouldn't feel bad, George. I was talking to my wife about this morning. Like, I don't think I'm a dumb guy. I think I'm a smart guy. I think I'm a 99th percentile guy. You're still it's still like this most of the time for me. Okay. It's still like this most of the time. I'm running back here trying to keep up with George Webb. Like, what the heck is he talking about? And I think that the reason that most of the email that I get from people, most of the comments that I get from people is thank you for asking George the question that I had about whatever it is that he's talking about. And the reason I ask you those questions is because I have those questions. Like, I can't keep up with you. I can't. Mark Kulacz is way ahead of me, okay, on all this stuff. I'm so busy doing the research for my own thing that I don't really, people, and I'm glad that you get them, but people, they're very, very smart people who send me emails all the time about all this biotechnology stuff. And I asked somebody who sent me something the other day, are you CCing George on this? Okay. Because it's kind of wasted on me. Okay. Mark Kulacz may get this stuff. JJ Cooey may get this stuff. George Webb may get this stuff. Peter Duke understands enough about the basic mechanics because Peter Duke's father was a physician, and Peter Duke's father wanted him to go to medical school and made sure that he understood all of this kind of organic chemistry level stuff when he was a senior in high school. But it's been a long time since I was a senior in high school. So I can keep up, but I can't really add anything. So
I just want to be absolutely clear on where I think the process for the protective antigen came from and where the process and the gene came from. Right there. And I said it in a book 3 years ago, Sina Bavare. That's how it got out of Fort Detrick and Jens Kuhn, not Meryl Nass. I think Meryl Nass is an easy person to blame. And she definitely is meeting with them. And they're definitely trying to cover.
And those are receipts that George is holding up. The difference between what John Cullen and Jason Goodman are doing and what we're doing right now is that they're telling stories to each other.
They're holding up my receipts. They're holding up my receipts from 2017.
And telling stories.
Yeah, they're holding up my receipts from 2017.
And they're charging people for super secret special access to them. We don't do that. If you want to take care of us, it's right there. Okay. We'll do a Zoom call this month. You'll get some EPUBs. I had a 2-hour meeting with somebody who's a member of the Duke Report because she wants to start doing the same kind of work that I've been doing while I've been doing research, which is resurrecting $700 books, used books that are only available as $700 books or PDFs, and turning them into EPUBs so that they are consumable on a Kindle or on an Apple book reader on your iPad or your computer. And that's great work, you know, and I spent 2 hours with her explaining to her how I do that. Anybody else who wants to do that kind of work, I've got time for you. Like I'm willing to take time out to help people do that kind of stuff, because the more people have access to information that's been hidden or is unavailable, then the smarter we all get.
You still are the only person to bring a dead president to life with the most important message he ever said. And that still deserves whatever they call this, a Tubi or a YouTubi or whatever they call it.
I got to tell you, in the research that I've been doing lately, I don't have much respect for any president since probably Abraham Lincoln.
He might have been covering his ass. Truman might have been covering his ass by saying that I shouldn't have ever instituted this thing and it got out of control. But he did hammer him. right?
Oh yeah, no. He did, and again, it's funny because I was looking at the Dwight Eisenhower comment at the end, and I'm thinking, is that a limited hangout because he's pointing at the military-industrial complex instead of at the military-industrial complex's bosses,
Right?
you know, because it's easy to throw Boeing and Raytheon and General Dynamics and DynCorp under the bus. When they're actually just doing what they're told.
Yeah.
So there's something for you to think about right there. All right,
Tuesday.
George. I'll see you on Tuesday. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Peter.
Bye now.